Hi, everybody. This is Helen Hillix, your host for Sex and Spirituality, Passionate Intimacy Without Shame. And I am very excited today to interview Dr. Ray Doktor. And I will tell a little bit about him in a second, but I want to say why I'm doing this series. I not only had a painful sexual history myself back in the sexual revolution days, but I've been a counselor for 35 years, and I've worked with countless clients who have struggled with their sexuality, with shame, and with how to integrate their sexuality with their spirituality and find a more fulfilling, deeper meaning for sexuality than just genital friction. So that's my passion, and Ray Doktor has a very similar passion, and that's why I was attracted to inviting him on the show. And Ray is a breakthrough life coach. He has a master's in counseling psychology and a doctorate in clinical psychology. He's conducted workshops and lectures in the United States, Netherlands, and Brazil. He has shared the same stages and panels with Marianne Williamson, Bruce Lipton, and Eckhart Tolle, and John Gray. And he's appeared on the E! Channel and HBO, and you might also have heard of him on LA Talk Radio or Talk America Radio. And visit Ray Doktor, and doctors with a K.com for more information. So welcome, Ray. I'm so excited to have you today and to hear your wisdom and entertaining way of talking about sex and spirituality and your blend of Eastern and Western medicine. I love that.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me on this show or summit.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here. And I know that you have some specific questions that you would like to talk about. And I love that you provided those for me so that you can be a very personal expression of yourself on the show and not just go through a bunch of rote questions. But I do like to ask a couple of grounding questions for the audience. You know, the first one is, how do you define sex, Ray?
I define sex as basically the union between men and women, or men and men, or women, where we are channeling life force through our bodies to be connected. And that could be to procreate, that could be to expand, that could feel good. But it's just one more, I would say, organ or vibratory way to connect to another person or your own self-expression. To me, no differently than my tongue, whereas I can grab a piece of strawberry and chew on it and feel the sugar there. Why has this organ down there gone into the shadows? Do you understand? So that's kind of what we're sharing, is that I see it as very much integrated who I am and very much like the rest of me.
I love that. And do you think of it as not just the rest of your body, but as a whole life kind of experience?
Absolutely. And I've loved how you've mentioned the whole genital, the friction sex or whatever. This summit, I'm assuming, is just to help people discover other ways to be more expressive in it. And so absolutely. I mean, if you feel good down there, you're going to feel good in your brain. You're going to release endorphins and so forth. So everything's connected, biologically. It's all moving through our bodies anyway. So there's no separation.
I love that. So there's no separation within ourselves, and there's no separation between us and the rest of the universe, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay, I love that. And what do you think people are looking for with sex, Ray?
That could be the entire interview, but
yes,
some people are looking to feel pleasure. Some people are looking to not be ashamed. Some people are looking just to understand it more. Some people are looking to sex as a release. I mean, everyone has their different experience. So, my intentions would be to offer so much more here.
Do you believe that essentially at some deeper level, Ray, that people are looking for connection with sex, even if they don't know it?
Well, it depends on who your audience is. So right now, this very moment, some people who are not, and when I say conscious and not being judgmental, but even like even open to this conversation itself might be absurd to them. That's in other words. So depends on who it is. If it's a person who has enjoyed a little bit of sex, but that it just seems to be the same thing, a pattern, that type of person obviously would be like saying, I want to see the stars when I have this experience. A person who has been ashamed and still feels ashamed to touch themselves, want to just get over the psychological issues with it. So I don't think it's one person. When you ask me a question, I'm kind of come from a broader point of view, especially after I interview a lot of people and what their relationship is to sexuality. So if you're talking about people in San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Monica, yeah, the kind of more hippie tribe, they're going to be like, yeah, I want to know more about tantric sex. But then you have very basic people who've been shamed. They just want to be able to enjoy just being able to look at themselves and touch themselves without feeling that guilt. So I think all people want to go over, like move past where they are, but everyone's at a different level. Like just a quick little example would be like, if there's no running water in a small town, and we go there and we give these people running water, and they're so grateful and happy, and then we go, but you don't have filters. And they're thinking, well, we'd rather have muddy water than no water because the town down below doesn't have water at all. Yeah. So it depends on where a person is consciously, that I think all people default want to expand, but depending on where they are consciously, that bar might be different for them.
Okay. So I'm just coming from the place also of that there is, if we are part of the oneness, that there is a sort of unconscious longing to connect both to ourselves and to each other and to the universe. But you're saying that that completely depends on the person, whether they have that longing or not.
Absolutely. I think everyone wants more out of it, but the bar or their expectations might be different.
Right. I love that. Yes. Everybody wants more out of it, but but that bar is very different. I like that. So let's dive into the questions. Why is sexuality considered a topic still hidden in the shadows?
Well, I believe that there's, misunderstandings in the scriptures, such as, if you look at the times, if you look at culturally, that, they wanted people to be plentiful. Like, people died at a very young age. They were very much based in, say, their race and so forth. Even, say, gay sex, there was this maybe misconception that it was recreational sex rather than possibly might be love, or also, say, a man cannot get pregnant. People are not aware of this. Fornication could also have been meant like, being recreational, but also with another race. Whereas, we can control our race if it's if it's within like a ceremony and so forth, so it could be a way to kind of keep women from becoming pregnant or our race being spread out. There's a lot of things that people are not aware of this teachings that were there 2,000 years ago. It's a different time and culture, and people don't understand that. Even the perpetrated archetypal virgin in horror, it's where within the collective consciousness still, it's changed a lot to where you would have the woman who like was respected and an angel and so forth. Then you'd have the prostitute or the slut. There's always been like this separation. Whereas why can't we have like, the sacred slut? Why can't we have the wife, or partner who can be it all? And that's kind of a big part of, what we're trying to share here. So I think that there's been a lot of confusion with this, with religion, and so forth. And because of this also is that because we don't talk about it, then also, what excites us gets pushed down, rape gets pushed down, boundaries gets pushed down, and different expressions of sexuality gets pushed down because a lot of it is mixed in with what we have been brought up to believe and so forth. So many of us are breaking away from that, and we're trying to carve out what would work for us. But still, it's one of those things in the shadows. I mean, a lot of things on our planet is coming out of the shadows. There has always been, say, sexual abuse in the film industry. There's always been sexual abuse, but more and more as we feel safer to talk about it, come out, then people can openly say, this is me, this is my body. More and more you see, at least I see women come out and saying, this is me, I'm not to be objectified. I'm a goddess. Yes, I have a yoni, but it's not for your exploitation and so forth. So as we keep moving into this, we're now starting to define how this can work for all of us, because where we had come from was distorted by the government, by religion, which they were kind of intertwined and so forth. So that is my belief why it has still been in the shadows, but it's coming out.
Thank goodness it's coming out. And I completely agree with what you're saying about the repressive nature of a lot of religious teaching. Do you believe, Ray, that the exploitative kind of focus on being hot and having a certain pornographic body type even, and all of that, is a reaction to that puritanical brainwashing? Or how do you see that because there is such a push on being sexual, looking sexual from very young age? Do you believe that's related to this bringing it out of the shadows?
In a way, yes, I would say, but I would say probably more in patriarchy, because the thing is that women, for the longest times, have been told when they have some type of value, whether it's for their body, what children they can provide for me because I have a farm, and I need children. I need 10 children because maybe only
Right.
5 are going to live. To to even where the women have to wear a veil because the men don't want to own their own sexual expression, and they feel as though that the women are basically teasing them with that. Whatever is that. I think that women, and because they're smaller and that men have been in charge, is that they become bits and pieces of what they think men will like, bits and pieces. Now look at that for a moment. Let's just go to like Marilyn Monroe, or where like you started kind of seeing more of that. It's like men, even in porn, you'll see still the porn scenes are typically about the men's fantasies.
Yes.
Those women have a tendency to look like how a lot of women look like. I'm not judging, but look at, uh, what OC Housewives, or like these shows where you see the women and, they're in their 40s, 50s. They look attractive, but they got fake boobs, lips, whatever. They look very
Right.
like porn stars.
Yes.
So they are objectified. And so therefore it becomes part of the collective consciousness, part of man's fantasies. And women, unless they're conscious and awake, they have a tendency to want to please. They want to make people happy. So of course they go, if they're unconscious and they don't really own themselves, then there is kind of the pseudo experience. Then I belong. I'm loved. I'm yearned for. Men want me. Therefore I have some worth. When women can really break apart of that and say, I don't give a fuck what men think about me, then you can create, the idea and expression that you desire that's come for you, whether it's naked or clothed. But men should have no input in that.
I love that, Ray. And do you see that as two different things then, or do you see that patriarchal society as an extension of that misinterpretation of the religious?
You just got that. It's interesting. Why not? I'm just going to, more and more, I'm kind of
Why not?
transparent. So I went on a vacation at this place, and I'm not trying to get like in politics, but I should have just been hanging out with the Bush family, okay? And it was a very peaceful place, and Solvang, and it was where they had horses and everything else, and it was a lot of money to go there. And I went there with my son. It was like my first vacation. My son just turned 5, or he's turned 5 this Wednesday, and we were there, and I noticed that a lot of people there like had it, they made good money, and the wives and even the daughters had this kind of way of looking, kind of like where they look like they went to the gym, but they're really not in their bodies. It's like there's a
Yes,
difference between being like strong or having, the fake boobs, whatever. Whereas it could be a person who's a little overweight or skinny, and she's glowing. She feels more comfortable in her body than these women who are like totally like perfect. In their children, I saw a daughter wearing something I felt like maybe it was a little bit edgy, like a thong at a younger age. Not a thong, but something, but angry, not in her body. But if you step back and look at her, you go, oh, she's going to become just like her mom, like a product of what her mother learned to say please the father, the husband. So I have seen this. I saw it there. And so, yes, I see that. And so, of course, a daughter I've heard stories about how fathers have said when their daughters look good, you look great. Compliment their own daughters for their bodies and their looks.
Absolutely happens all the time. All the time. I love that you're bringing that out. No other expert has talked about that, Ray. And I think that is such a powerful statement, that
Yes.
this whole thing, and how it is a part of sexuality being hidden in the shadows.
Yes.
Even though it looks like it's right out there on the surface, it's not real.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. It's like so I'm single, like, and I've been for about a year and a couple of months or something like that. And I took space, and people ask me, like, you must be really selective, or people might be confused. Like, it should be easy for you to meet someone. And yes, I meet people, but what's interesting in my experience, because I might be different than most guys, and it's very similar to my goddess female friends who are coaches or yoginis or whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
I don't even want to call them hippies, because I think that kind of disqualifies their true essence of who they are. Okay. But these are women who are really beautiful, and with or without makeup, they glow. Some were ex models, dancers, whatever, but they're very comfortable in their body. And uh, many men are attracted to them. And not only these women are attractive, they're conscious. They can hold space where they in a holding the masculine container where the man is more emotional or is cut off or is awkward, whatever. And so they often are sharing with me that, oh my God, Ray, you should see the men I go out with. I mean, they lack emotional awareness. Um, they ejaculate too quick. They're not comfortable in their bodies. Their heads are cut off. Um, I mean, the list goes on. They lack empathy. They have unawareness and so forth. And I would say, I'm having the same experience. And these are with women who would be considered maybe attractive, that where they have become a product of our society. They're not comfortable with their bodies. They might look physically good, but you hug them, you can tell they're awkward. To where I've had sex with, some people say who look like this. It's like, oh my God, I had this type of sex when I was in high school.
Right.
Yeah, like the genital friction type of sex, to disconnected, to just like, very being mechanical, to where they expect to fuck like a porn star or something. So
Eyes closed, no talking, no. Yeah, I get it.
yeah, so when your bar is really high, like you've had really amazing sex and you've had really connective conversations. This is both with men and women. Why would I? Why would I settle? So I'm having the same experience. So that's probably a big reason why I'm excited about sharing this information here, because I'm hoping the masses can hear this, not just people who are slightly interested in tantric sex or spirituality, but those who are willing to admit that I've never had an orgasm. Why? Or why did I only last this long? Or I hear about the spiritual sex. What the hell's that mean? I've heard about women having these long orgasms. Like, what is that? Because like I can't, or it's quick. To why is it that I cry when I have sex? Why is it that I feel ashamed when I have sex? People like asking those questions. I know all of this can help.
I'm with you. I think when you said earlier, everybody wants more from
Yes.
sex, but they don't know how to get it, whether it's all those things you listed, but everybody has some essential feeling inside them that I know there's more.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
So, the next question: how can someone explore, express, and define their own unique sexuality? Follows from exactly what you were saying.
So keep in mind that when I talk about relationship, while most people think about a relationship outside of ourselves, that it's really the relationship with yourself. It's how you relate to yourself. So you can be on a speed date, you don't even know a person, you're there for 2 3 minutes, and you can see that the man is maybe checked out, he's checking his phone while you're sharing quick questions, and you walk away from it thinking he did not like me. when in reality, he probably didn't even see you. He wasn't there. But how you talk to yourself is going to be the experience and be your projection. And you would say, he is this type of guy. Okay. So I'm just setting this up for you to understand when I talk about relationship, it's about that experience and how do you relate to yourself. So now we'll go to that actual question. And that is where, first off, there is a genetic reason why you might want to have sex. And that is to procreate, or it's just that your hormones are starting to change and so forth, which is something that happens to, when children start going through puberty. So that is a kind of more basic way, basic level where we start kind of like, becoming curious. We start touching ourselves and so forth. Okay. But you want to look at that relationship because if it's not healthy, that is probably blocking you. Okay. Psychologically, some people have an idea about that having sex means I'm yearned for, I'm loved, I'm adored. Or with that, that means that your expression is going to be contingent on the response of someone else. That's not healthy. So you want to examine your relationship to how you define it for yourself as far as your psychological stuff. Like you might have some sense of self when you have sex that's not healthy, okay? Culturally, to be in a relationship, my family will like me or love me, or because I'm married now, we're supposed to have sex, that there's some commitment. Also, it's where, say, for example, a woman in the 1950s, if she were to be single or divorced at 35 years old and had children, she would be looked at in a very negative way. So culturally during that time, people maybe stayed with their partners because of the culture and because they felt like this is an obligation. So, people should understand their ideas of when they have sex, what does that mean to them? When I have sex with another person, what does that mean to me? When I touch my vagina or my penis, what does that mean to me? And so forth. So in all of that, until you know that, you can't really define what you like.
I love that. I love that. Exploring your mindset, exploring your attitude, exploring the messages that go through your brain. And people don't think about that, do they, Ray?
No, they don't. And so the way you have emotional and healthy spiritual sex is by first looking at the contrast of what that might be and where you are with honesty. Like, oh my God, I have hangups. Oh my God, I have blocks. Awesome. You are evolving. And you need to know that first. And with that, typically it's just the opposite of that. I feel uncomfortable when I masturbate I love touching my body. I realize it's just not my vagina or penis. It's like when I take a bath, I love how the warm water feels on my body. We are sensual beings. So when Helen and I talk about sexuality, we're also talking about the sensuality of life, how things are experienced in your body. And once again, how you relate to yourself. And notice I'm using the word self. How could the self be separate from spirituality? So obviously sexuality could not be separate from spirituality. Because
that may seem so obvious, so simple, but I would love you to say that again, because I don't think that's obvious or simple, Ray.
So if you notice, I'm talking about how you relate to yourself. And when we think of ourselves, more often we think of like our connection to God. And so if you're masturbating and having sex, how you feel about it is going to be relating to yourself. How could that be separate from your spirituality? It can't be.
I remember a breakthrough moment for myself was years ago. I was pleasuring myself with the express idea that I was having sex with God. And it was an amazing breakthrough moment. And it really taught me exactly what you're saying. How could I be separate from the oneness? How could I be?
Well, I worked with some Carmelite nuns who admitted having an orgasm in meditation. Kundalini energy moving through the body. They didn't have to touch themselves.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. I love that.
Have orgasms.
I love that. I mean, that just blows apart all of our prejudices and preconceived ideas about what sex is.
There's a book called Testimony of Light. I think that's the title. It's close to that. It was written by two nuns in the early 1960s, and they used to communicate telepathically. And one of them died. Communication didn't stop. And so the other one was talking about what's on the other side. It was so awesome. And she starts talking about the misunderstandings of the church, and yet she doesn't put it down. But there's one part where she says that I misunderstood what spirituality was. I read the books, I did this, I tried to do it right, when spirituality was part of my life experience. And I separated myself from my human experiences, which included not procreating, having children. So she talks about how she did not basically have to become celibate to connect to God.
Love that. Do you want to say anything more about that, about defining your own unique sexuality, or
Or more about nuns and orgasms.
well, I love that you said that, honestly, because it, again, it just, the more the audience's minds are blown, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Because really, what you're talking about, a minute ago, you were talking about how can we be separate from God and from the universe. It's really all about just bringing consciousness to our sexuality, and
Yes,
consciousness to our own behaviors, and consciousness to our own thinking. And I know that's what you're all about, really, is bringing consciousness.
absolutely.
And I think people just they don't even know what that means in their lives. They're so, most of us are so used to just going through life without that awareness. And I love that you were talking about the sensuality of bathing. And again, that is just bringing your conscious awareness to what you're doing and what you're feeling. So I just wanted to underscore some of the things that you said. So let's move on to the next question. How can couples transcend beyond the old stories, trauma, and other influences to have extraordinary experiences with sex?
So it goes back to the when I mentioned earlier about like your own self-examination, meaning that you need to kind of know yourself and your attitude about sex before you think your partner is going to guide you or that it's going to get better. Meaning that he needs to know himself and she needs to know herself, or she, and he.
Right.
That's the first part. And in that also, before you maybe explore that, is to develop um, more body awareness that this is my body, even to your blocks, like saying like, yes, like I don't like to be touched there, or that I'm uncomfortable, or something happens to me, to be honest with that. To be transparent and authentic, about including, sharing about your past programming. Here's a program that most people are not aware, for example, like many men, come too quickly. Well, I've worked with many men, and we've gotten to part of the roots where, they're them masturbating, they're afraid to be caught. They were maybe raised in a religious home. And I was a man, and I was a boy, and I was a teenager. And so like I had a hard on a lot. So it was like trying not to get caught. I'm not going to do well, why not? I mean, I'm behind a closed door. I hope mom doesn't catch me. Not that my mom had a problem, but it's like I start connecting to, urgency. So I'm training myself to, ejaculate in 5 fucking minutes.
Right.
How am I? How do I? How could I be a lover who lasts a long time when this has been my pattern for 2 years, 3 years? Okay, so just like that, it's a simple, benign, innocent programming. But there's other ones where it's like where you've been uh, subjected to information that you're not aware of, to where like even I felt like my father looked at me in a really creepy way. He never touched me, but I felt really uncomfortable in my body. I've heard this from some clients where they would cover themselves up, so they were not fully open and available. And what's interesting about that is that they would also try guys who were reciprocal for that. So they end up having a crappy sex life based off the original energy and emotion. So their now idea and programming is that sex is not all that good. So it's very important to kind of understand this. And then the other one is to understand the persistent identities that are played off of each other. In other words, like, for example, is that we play off of people's energies and they become this particular projection or whatever. Like, for example, it's like if couples are watching this or you're single, you'll probably remember this, to where when your partner would say or do that one thing, that you would have a reaction, or that when you have that same topic, that conversation, you both would have that reaction. So you would avoid those conversations, which is pushed into the shadows. That shit is going to come up during sex. That shit is going to come up when you're most vulnerable. So just be aware that you might have like these cognitive constraints. I mean, we're not going to go there. We're going to pretend this is ignored, but that shit's going to show up in the bedroom. So there has to be transparency with all things in your relationship to connect in an authentic moment, which is when we should have sex. Not bringing our baggage or whatever and going, well, you know, we got married 5-10 years ago, so we're committed to this, and I'm not cheating, so let's do this, or we're stressed out. When like you really don't trust him, but you allow yourself to have sex, and you're trying to wonder why is it that I feel like a prostitute? Well, if you don't trust him, don't let him enter you. So you have to be real in this and get this all out on the table to come from a co-creative place of authenticity and curiosity.
Wow. I mean, you did just a whole program about couples right there, because it is so true that whatever dynamics are going on in the relationship are going to show up in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And people do not understand that. I have couples come in all the time who say, we've got some sexual issues. We love each other. We're happily married, but we just have some sexual issues. And of course, that's never the case.
Yeah.
And I think,
awesome, Helen, this too, is that you can create your own spiritual container of what sex means to you. And in that experience, you can have sex, your wife cries, and she starts talking about her dad who passed away, she hadn't gotten over it. And then maybe you're thinking, how's this related to sex? Well, remember, we share this life force. And when it's the most powerful energy, and when life force moves through you, it opens your heart up, it opens up everything else. So a lot of stuff's going to come up.
yeah, that's interesting. Kind of the other side of it,
Mm-hmm.
is that you bring all the shit in, but you also can open up a lot of beautiful sharing at the same time.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very powerful.
By the way, I didn't understand it. I remember in my 20s, I remember after, getting off, that I would become very contemplating and do like a life review. Where am I with my life? Am I aligned with my purpose? And I'm like, now I do get it.
Why that happened, you mean?
Yeah,
Why?
energy was moving through me. It was shaking up energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can a person find the right support, including in the tantric and sexual healing community? I think that's such a powerful question, because people don't know where to go, and they often end up, I've heard people saying, you want to get turned on, go to pornography. It's like people don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first off is like find at least one friend, person, coach that you can trust, and let them know that you are exploring this. And this even means virtually. You might say, well, I live in a small town and everyone's closed off, or you literally might be in a culture where people don't talk about it. But remember what I shared, and I keep going back to certain things. How you relate to yourself is what's more important. So whether you're getting this information online or listening to it or whatever, how that you learn that and how you relate to yourself is going to help you anyway. So it doesn't matter if the person's with you physically. Again, it's always back to the relationship with yourself. Okay. So just find some that you have that can support you in this journey. And then a thing that I really want to, it's so important for me, because I've seen this in the tantra community or this, the sexual healing community, where there have been, there's actually been rape. There has been male gurus saying that, having sex with me will heal you. So there's that also. I just want to put it out there, bring it out of the shadows. So these are people who have maybe not healed their stuff. So when it comes to like sexual healing and then where there's trauma, there are still shadows. So in this, and what's most important is remember is that you trust yourself over anything else that someone says. You trust yourself no matter what. And that is also why you have a friend to connect to, because it could be an experience where it could be someone whom is there. You never had that intimacy before. You may or may not be attracted to him. It might be a projection because you're thinking, God, he's amazing. She is amazing. But you know what's happening? You're relating to yourself. They're opening you up. They're just a mirror. You're falling in love with yourself. It's not them. It's you. Fall in love with you. They are just to be the container and guide for that. That is why I want you to have a friend, so they can kind of keep you in check and say, this is you, not him or her. Therefore, that helps you keep your own boundaries, and you make it about yourself, your own exploration. So,
can I ask you something about that? I've heard this so many times, and I am an advocate of this idea that the reason that we love a person is because we love who we are when we're with them.
yes, that's it. Thank you. That's it.
So I love that in connection with what you're saying about, trusting yourself.
Yes.
Is that, you've got to, just exactly what you're saying. You've got to bring it back to your relationship with yourself. And if, that's such a painful reality about all the religious communities in which there is sexual abuse. And I've heard of many, many, many. And anyway, I won't go into personal stories here, but the idea that if I trust myself and I'm staying connected to myself and how I feel about myself, then we're not going to be vulnerable to that.
Yeah, you're going to have clearer boundaries. And if it doesn't feel right, your heart's going to let you know that. And if you have uncertainty, then you have your friend to call and say, what do you think about this? And they might say, I think he's crossing a boundary.
I love that. And I love the idea of adding that friend in, because it adds a level of accountability too, of, am I doing what I need to be doing to get that healing?
And then the very last one would be just, remember, while you're working on your own, on your sexuality, you're truly working on your heart and definitions about sexuality. Again, when you're working on your sexuality, you're actually truly working on your heart and definitions about your sexuality. It has very little to do with your genitals or the act of sex itself. Your vagina or penis or your breasts, remember, they are just an extension of you. And depending on how you relate yourself by the stimulation, depending on your negative definitions about it, that experience is either going to be really joyful and, make you feel really good, or it's going to be blocked or connected to something really negative. And when I say this is that, like, for example, many women, cannot have, say, orgasms through just penetration alone. They need to be stimulated, their clitoris, okay? But I also know that with working with women like that, is that a big part of it is trust. It's about fully letting go and letting the body do what it needs to do. And until they let go of that control, it is hard for them. So therefore, it becomes more kind of a goal performance. It's kind of in the head, this works, versus let's just see what happens. Because at the end of the day, I think most of us know and agree that our ears feel good to be played with, that being touched down there, unless we've been traumatized. And again, if you didn't have the definition of being traumatized, more than likely being touched or touching yourself is going to feel good. So for it to be better, you always have to address your heart and your emotions and definitions to sexuality. The act of sex is actually pretty simple.
That's very, very profound. And that example that you gave, I think, is almost universal. Mm-hmm. That with women what is the statistic? 80% of women can't have an orgasm without clitoral stimulation concurrently, or something like that. Yes. And I completely agree with you. It's about that women in general, we're not encouraged really to open up completely. We're not encouraged to be free and to receive that male energy. And that, we could go right back to talking about the cultural influences there, but it's like, I just, that really touched my heart when you were saying that. It's like, it's really about your heart and women being liberated to feel free to really receive that male energy. And I know you've talked about that in other places, about that polarity issue, and encouraging people to relax into who they really are and more back to the self.
Yes. I wanted to add to this, and I'm going to assume that more women are going to watch this. I want to talk about two things, if it's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so many women are having challenges, more challenges than ever with, say, having an orgasm either way, and it's because they're so stressed. In other words, they've moved so much into the masculine that their bodies are taxed. The nervous system is in sympathetic mode rather than parasympathetic mode to have the orgasm. That's why we're on the rise of autoimmune disease. Women are doing way too much now. I'm going to be very clear with this. This doesn't mean that a woman cannot do this job. It just means in order for her body biologically to possibly do this, the testosterone, the energy to move forward, to be in action, is not like, I guess, readily supplied as it would be, say, in a male. So therefore, it's being pulled from their adrenals, okay, to move forward in that action mode. And in that is that you're not going to have the ability, maybe biologically, to experience the excitement of sex or even have the desire because your body's wiped out, okay? That's one part. And then another one is this, is that we talked about the male, and I want to be clear with that because there could be lesbians watching this, or there can be a woman who has an aversion to even talking about a male to do this. So I want to talk about masculine and feminine energy from a neutral perspective. Now, let's just imagine this is the vagina, and of course we look at it as a whole because we enter the whole, but what I'd rather is have you expand and look at this as more like openness and being receptive, being open. So like a flower. So imagine a flower is you plant it and you kind of let the universe do its thing, meaning the water, the sun, and so forth. But the flower, the blossoming of itself, is also a process of it being receptive to the sunlight, the receptive to the water, the receptive to the natural energies of the universe. So if the universe is within men and women, then we also operate with these neutral energies to open up ourselves to be a giver and receiver and be able to exchange this energy no differently than being in the garden. And so when we're closed off in more in a masculine mode and not in a receptive mode, then it's really hard for us to really harvest the fruits, harvest the vegetables and everything else. So in order for us to have an orgasm, in order for us to really experience that, we need to be able to learn how to nourish our bodies and be in that receptive mode in that experience. So it's not so much just, say, the male penis. It's more sun, light, and so forth.
I love that. And I'm definitely going to use that metaphor with women. I just love that because it's so powerful and takes away all of the imagery about the penis and the friction. Mm-hmm. And it allows you just to focus on the receiving.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
we could talk about this all day long. But I'm glad you brought in that issue about the receiving and the giving, because I think women have a tremendous problem also with just the whole topic of receiving.
Absolutely.
We are taught to give, make him happy, make him happy, make him happy, make them happy. And so the idea of just receiving that energy from the universe is a challenge.
But with that giving, with you, it's not your job to make your husband or boyfriend happy. It's not your job to make men happy. In fact, probably most men on this planet are still going to continue to be unhappy until they allow themselves to be in a receptive mode. This is why you're seeing toxic masculinity. It's not being described in a way that's probably more accurate to what I'm talking about. With men also, both men and women are experiencing toxic masculinity. That's experience, whether it's a man or woman. I'm going to do. Am I experiencing? Am I being nourished with life? Because the thing is that you could cook, be like the 1950s housewife where the house is clean and the dinner's ready, and he comes home from work, he's still in his head His nervous system is taxed. He's like stressed out. He sees you, but he doesn't really see you. He sees the food, but he doesn't really smell it or taste it. Therefore, he's not really present because he's not in a receptive mode. But you relate yourself saying, I wonder if he doesn't like how I cooked it, or is the house not clean? No, it was always clean. The meals were always perfect in the 1950s. He was blocked off. He was not in that receptive mode. Okay? Both men and women are in that place right now. And that's toxic masculinity. It is an imbalance of overusing your masculinity and also an imbalance of receiving femininity, feminine energy, hug, love, presence, life, growth, children.
And you're saying that within the male as well as the female.
Yes.
Within the male, he needs that ability to receive.
Absolutely.
I love that out of balance, because that's all it is it's masculinity out of balance. There's nothing wrong with masculinity. We need it. We love it. Mm-hmm. So do you want to discuss any particular or even just summarize all the wonderful tools you've already given us as well, because you have, I mean, you've already given us, 10 tools or more. So would you summarize some of the takeaways that you would like to leave the audience with that you feel are most important?
Absolutely. Number one, define your own sexuality, meaning, again, how you relate to yourself. What does that mean to you? Not what you were taught, not from your religion or whatever, because you maybe feel guilty. You might say, I was raised Catholic, blah, blah, blah. But because you're saying that, that's not the problem now, meaning that you can blame that. My question would be, what are you going to do with that? Because you're watching the summit because you disagree with that. So, okay, what's your call of action? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to me? What do I want from it? So you might hear yourself go, but what would my mom think? Oh my God, it's really none of her business. Okay, what do I want from it? So it's relating back to yourself. That's number one. Number two, explore your body from a more open perspective without any judgment. In other words, women will look at, I know this already, they'll look at their breasts, like pretend I'm looking in the mirror, and they'll look at it's not perky enough. I remember when I was younger, they're too small to this, that. Now, what's in this area also? Your heart. So when you're focusing on negative energy here, what else do you think is feeding off of that? Your heart. So not only to the heart, to the genitals, whatever, is to step back, look at a mirror, and look at yourself in a very sexual and sensual way that's not defined primarily by men or patriarchy. Okay? Because, think about this. How many men are out of shape? I mean, come on. How many men just have these big guts, whatever it is, and they're like, women don't rip them apart and like make fun of them and judge them. You understand? So men have been able to get away with making you a product to their desire. Step back from that bullshit. Look at yourself. Because without their definitions, you're perfect. Without patriarchy definitions, you're perfect the way you are. So step back from that to really love yourself, how you are. Because until then, you're not going to like how someone touches you because you don't like to touch yourself. You don't like to be with yourself. Learn how to be with yourself in a non-judgmental way. Those would be the two things.
I love that. And it's so powerful in our society today with all, like you were saying, about the fake tits and the, fake lips. And I mean, everything. It's like, the fake butts. It's unbelievable.
That's to me, I think that looks scary. Wow. It hasn't been tested yet. I wonder what they're going to look like 50 years from now.
I mean,
if the boobs droop, then where does the fake butts look like? I mean,
It's so true. It's so true. But it's also difficult to rebel against that and to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And I love that you're giving women the courage and men too, but especially women, the courage to say, I'm not going to define my sexuality by men. I think that's so powerful, which relates to your free gift. Any final words before I talk about your free gift?
This is for men. Yeah, little part here. So, just like men, we talked about social norms. So this might trigger some women. I'm okay with that. But this is primarily for both men and women, or men. Or it doesn't really matter. So I grew up. I just realized I'm like, so I grew up. I was born in 1969. I'll be 50 this next month. And when I started looking at women, it was like during the 80s. And that was kind of like the Jane Fondas and the Victoria's Secret type of models, long and thin, or like kind of like muscular. So when I remember the 90s, and like when Jennifer Lopez became popular with her, the butt, stuff like that, I didn't get it because I was taught that that was fat, or, whatever that was. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I never got it. And, so my friends in who are maybe from that generation, they would say with my girlfriends or whatever, they're like, she's attractive, but she needs meat on her butt. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we came from different generations, and yet no one's right. Okay. Social norms, literally from the culture, they wire your neurological connections to what you're going to be attracted to. We at this moment are creating social norms, literally and biologically. So in other words, if we were to promote like being really fat, being like attractive, and it just keep pushing and pushing it, then people who are skinny might feel like they are like how maybe people overweight feel. Like we really create this, and literally like how I see women and what I'm attracted to, it is very much of like what I was exposed to in the 80s. And
It's
I'm trying
so
to change.
true.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's starting to work. I mean, I'm moving away from that. I'm breaking. So when I say break your definitions, what you might be attracted to is what you've been programmed to be attracted to.
I completely
Those type of
agree.
women. And
Yep.
here's the thing: come on, man. If men watch this, is that, and you also know more than likely you're never going to be with a woman like that. Why? There's not many. They don't really exist. You only really see them in porn or in movies and whatever. They are a product of whatever. But most women like that, most women don't look that way. So you create a fantasy. I hope one day I'm going to have a woman like this. You're never going to. So it's never enough. Constant masturbation, whatever. Until you connect to your heart, you're always going to feel this separateness. And it's not because you don't have her, because you don't love you. You don't know you. And until you love you and know you, you won't attract it in someone else.
I love that you're bringing that up, Ray. And we could talk for hours about that, but about how we are trained to be attractive to certain things, again, that we never question. And it falls back under just like the religiosity brainwashing. It's the same exact thing. It's like we are also brainwashed about the physical appearance and women being subservient and whatever all the other things are. And we just I love that you're bringing it up. It's time for us to examine all of it.
Yes, chivalry. Okay, so my dad is 93. I did Marines 30 years from New York. You can feel that in probably my energy, but he definitely shows up, opens up the door, like he is that way. I'm that way. And I went on some dates with some millennials and open door, whatever, and they were surprised. Like they were not even attracted to where I remember pulling up to CVS 1:30 a.m. and I come around and I said, I'll go with you. She said, you don't need to go. She said, you don't need to come with me. I said, it's 1:30 a.m. She said, and I went, oh, okay. She just didn't connect to that because it's not what she was raised to believe as being attractive. She's used to maybe guys who just don't give a shit or just unaware of it. So me showing up that way may turn on a woman who is 40 years old and up, But whereas a woman who maybe is 25 to 35 years old, they don't get it. Doesn't matter. See?
Yeah, I mean, and we may be losing some good things, but I think in overall we are examining things and hopefully moving in the direction of real spiritual evolution. And of course, that's what you're all about. So, anything else before?
Just I enjoy doing this, and I have a book that's called Happiness Decoded. And while it might sound like it's not related to sexuality, it's everything. Because happy people make happy sex. And in the book, it does go into what I spoke about definitions and how you've been programmed through religion, through trauma, through social media, and so forth. The difference in what you can do when you read the book is primarily use it to explore your sexuality, because it's all in there. There's actual like exercises in there to explore that and help you to really know yourself better and have a extraordinary sex life.
I love that. And I love the way you describe it, that Happiness Decoded is a short, no fat added guide to help you discover and release self-defeating behaviors and patterns in your relationship. And that's what it's all about.
Yes.
You know, releasing those self-defeating patterns, whether it's old ideas of what's attractive, or it's the genital focus instead of the whole body, or it's the feeling that you're separated from the universe, all of that. So please, guys, check out his book. I think you're going to get a tremendous amount from it. And would you tell us a little bit more about how people can follow you, can access you?
Well, the best way would be to like just download the book, and it will connect you to my website and so forth. But my website is www.raydoktor. So it's Ray Doctor, but my last name is with a K, and that's my real last name. So it's Doctor with a K.
And Facebook, are you on social media?
On Facebook, yes. I'm all over. I'm all over Facebook. So definitely, people just Google my name, and you'll just stay connected to me, and love to stay in touch.
Okay, and I know you've got some really great blogs on all kinds of different topics on your video and written on your website too, which there's a lot of information for people to access for free on your website. So I love that. It's full of really, really helpful, powerful things. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ray, for taking time to talk to our audience today. I know they're going to get a tremendous benefit from being with you, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.